Salvete discipuli. Cohort students, I hope you're all doing well and I miss you all. So salvete Jaren, et Abigail, et Hannah, et Isaac, et Sawyer, et Abby, et Ethan, et Ella, et Nick, et Obed, et Dakota, et Hannah, et David, et Anne-Marie, et Kyrese, et Haley, et Jamisha. Misha. I miss you all, and like I said, I hope you're all doing well, and I'm glad that we can continue to learn Latin together, and I hope that you are continuing to enjoy learning Latin and are excited about the new things that we're able to learn. So as always, it would be great if you had your lesson plan in front of you, and we are going to begin with the Lord's Prayer. Discipuli oremus. Pater noster, qui es in caelis, sanctificetur nomen tuum. Adveniat regnum tuum. Fiat voluntas tua, sicut in caelo et in terra. Panem nostrum quotidianum da nobis hodie et dimite nobis debita nostra, sicut et nos dimitimus debitoribus nostris. Et ne nos inducas in tentationem, sed libera nos a malo. Amen. All right, so if you have your lesson plan in front of you, you can see the first part of our lesson is our vocabulary review. But without looking at the vocabulary review, I'm going to say a word and I want you to tell me its translation. So, cuyus is a new one from last week. What does cuyus mean? Cuyus means whose, remember? And then quote. What does quote mean? How many? Last week we talked about the English word quota, which means a certain number that you need to reach or you can't go past. It's saying how many you need. And so in Latin, quote means how many in a question. What about ancilla, ancillae? Servant or servants. And is it masculine, feminine, or neuter? It's feminine and used to refer to female servants. What about domina, dominae? Master or masters. And is it masculine, feminine, or neuter? Feminine, and it's used to refer to female masters. We can tell for both of those words they end in an A when they're singular and AE when they're plural, which gives us a clue that they're both feminine. All right, so we're going to talk about our word of the week. And this week, our word is century. Now, you've probably heard that we're living in the 21st century, but what does that mean? What is a century? A century is 100 years. So every 100 years we make it to a new century. So the 1800s, from 1800 to 1899, that was one century. Then 1900 to 1999, that's another century. And now that we're in the 2000s to 2099, we're in the 21st century. And this English word century comes right from the Latin centum. Centum, C-E-N-T-U-M. And if you had to make a guess, what would you guess that this Latin word means? You guessed right. It means 100. So our English word century comes right from the Latin centum, meaning 100. You keep that in mind today because we are going to use that word. Then in our lesson plan, we have a section of Latin grammar, and we've been talking a lot about the genitive case lately. So I'm sure you're tired of hearing about it, but just a quick review, we know that the genitive case means it's possessive. Usually we translate it as of or of the before that word. And so there's a little table for you to fill out with our genitive endings, singular and plural. And I put in example words for masculine, feminine, and neuter, just so you can practice putting the endings on in a real context or a real word. And then I have the translations underneath. So in your lesson plan, go ahead, pause this, and fill out that table with our genitive endings. Okay, hopefully you paused the video because we're going to go over them together. So for masculine singular, we have the ending I or E. For example, domini, which means of the master. Plural, we have aurum. For example, dominorum, meaning of the masters. Feminine, we have ae, I. For example, familiae, of the family. Then we have aurum as our plural ending. For example, familiarum, meaning of the families. For neuter, we have the same as masculine, which makes it easy, right? We have I or E. For example, opd, of the city. And plural, we have aurum. For example, opidorum, of the cities. Great work, cohort students. And we are going to move into our translation. So, starting with the first sentence, I'm going to remind you of a little bit of context. So the last sentence we translated last week, we stopped in the middle of the paragraph, so it's a little confusing, was, let me find this, In familia Julii sunt tres liberi. So in the family of Julius, there are 3 children. So based off of that context comes the first sentence, our question. Quot filii et quot filiae? This should be a question, so I'm going to add a question mark here. Quot filii et quot filiae? What do you notice about the sentence? Well, we have our word quote. We learned that one, right, last week? Quote means what? How many? So we have how many filii and how many filii. What does filii mean? Well, remember, filius means son. So filii would mean sons, right? It's plural. Now you might have gotten tripped up here. You might have seen this I ending and you might have thought, hey, that is our genitive singular ending. But if we tried that in this sentence, let's see if it makes sense. How many of the son and how many of the daughter? Does that make sense? That doesn't make sense. So when we see this filii ending, even though it could be genitive, we know that we need to translate it as plural. So how many sons and how many filii? Well, we could do the same thing here. We could say, hey, that's our feminine singular genitive ending of the daughter. But that doesn't make sense here. So how many sons and how many daughters? It's plural. We're asking a question about the family right now. We're saying how many sons and how many daughters? How many sons and how many daughters? Well, we're going to find out from our next sentence. Duo filii et una filia. What do you notice about our second sentence? Well, a couple weeks ago we talked about how duo means 2, but the ending here can change based on if it's masculine, feminine, or neuter. So we know duo, 2, and then we see filii again. And let's see, is this genitive or is it plural? Let's try both. 2 of the son or 2 sons. Well, this word right in front of it, duo, gives us a clue because duo means 2, and we know plural means more than 1, so we know that it should be plural. 2 sons and una, what is una? 1. Una filia. 1 daughter. And notice, we didn't originally learn this word with the ending a, but it is serving as an adjective here to match filia. They're both feminine, and these are both masculine. So we have 2 sons and 1 daughter. So in answer to the question, how many sons and how many daughters? 2 sons and 1 daughter. Okay, number 3. quote servi sunt in familia. Quote servi sunt in familia. What do you notice? We have the word quote again. We remember that means how many. Now we see servi. We have this I ending. So let's check. That means that it could be our masculine genitive ending. So could mean of the servant, or it could be plural and mean servants. So let's work on the rest of the sentence and come back. Sunt are in, that's easy, in familia, the family. So it could either be how many of the servant are in the family, or it could mean how many servants are in the family. Which one makes more sense? How many servants, right? It makes more sense for it to be plural. So we have how many servants are in the family. How many servants are in the family? Great work. Go ahead, write that down, and we're going to find out how many servants are in this family. Number 4. In familia sunt centum servi. What do you notice here? So we have in the family, right? We know that part. Sunt, there are. Centum. That was from our word of the week. What did we say that centum means? 100. 100. Oh my goodness. In the family, there are 100 servi. Now, what do you think? Should we translate it as genitive of the servant or plural? Servants. In the family, there are 100 of the servant, or in the family, there are 100 servants. Plural makes more sense, right? Especially when we see 100 right before it. That gives us a clue that it's going to be plural. It's definitely more than one. So we have in the family, there are 100 servants. That is a lot of servants for one family. But that was typical of wealthy families in Roman times. So we have in the family, there are 100 servants. Right, number 5. In familia Julii sunt multi servi, pauci liberi. So in the family, what do you notice? Let's work on just the first part. In the family Julii. And we see this ending, and we know it could be two things. What could they be? It could be plural, or it could be genitive. Let's see which one makes more sense. In the family Julius's, or in the family of Julius. Of Julius makes more sense. There can't really be more than one Julius when we're talking about him. He's just one person. So in the family of Julius, sunt, there are multi servi. Now we get to choose again. Is it plural or genitive? Is it in the family of Julius, there are of the many servant? Or in the family of Julius, there are many servants? In the family of Julius, there are many servants. That makes more sense. And then pauci liberi. Remind me, what does paucus mean? It means few. Liberi, what does that mean? Children. We know liber is singular, that means child. Liberi is plural, it means children. So when we see these I endings, again, we know it's not in the family of Julius, there are of the many servant, of the few child. That doesn't make sense. We have in the family of Julius, there are many servants, few children. Go ahead, write your translation. Okay, we have in the family of Julius, there are many servants, few children. Okay, our final sentence, I want you to try this on your own. Julius et Dominus multorum servorum. Now pay attention to our endings here. Look at your chart. What kind of endings are these? And go ahead and see if you can translate. Okay, are you ready? What did you get? We have Julius is the master, Julius est Dominus, of many servants, multorum servorum. Now, up until this part of the chapter, we haven't seen genitives in our adjectives, but here we see that just like when our adjectives or nouns are nominative, the subject, when they're genitive, the nouns and adjectives still have to match. So we have multorum servorum. See, they both match. They match. They're both plural, right? They're both masculine, and they are both genitive. So they are nouns and adjectives still match their endings. Just like in this sentence right here, multi servi, they matched, and pauci liberi, they're matching. So multorum servorum, our endings are matching, and it means Julius is the master of many servants. Go ahead, write that down. That is our last sentence for the day, cohort students. So if you need any help with your answers, remember I always include an answer sheet, and you can ask your parents to go ahead and look at that if you need to correct any of your work. And you're also welcome to email me if you have any questions, and I would love to help you as you're learning Latin. So until next time, cohort students, valete discipuli.